We're live discussing digital twin with Desi and Smart AI community. All right, how are y'all doing?
Good, 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 very good. A
All
little
right,
nervous, but I'm happy to be here today with everyone talking
all
about digital twin and its capabilities.
right. Glad to see everybody here. Um, the this topic is a little bit challenging because we don't know where to start or where to end or where to keep it. But we'll try our best. Try to keep it as least technical as possible, so that way everybody who's listening can get some information out of it and follow through with what information Desi will share. Right,
Mhm.
Desi, you wanna take over?
Yes, yes. Welcome everyone. Once again, thank you for being here. My goal for today is to open your world to digital twin and its capabilities, to incite you, to get your imagination going with all it can do. Honestly, when I was first introduced to digital twin, I couldn't stop thinking about the where it can go, what it can do, and how it could change things in my personal lives, more or less the world. How it can predict the future, something that I was always curious about, and how it could help organizations be better. So in this presentation, we're going to discuss three main things: the what, the how, and the why. Um, Today I made a mind map of digital twin, and I'm going to go into that. To the right of my digital twin, I have some PowerPoint slides. If you're curious about it, we have some images, and at the bottom we have a graph of digital twin. And in the center, we have kind of the idea if you were to think what a digital twin would be, that's what it is. It's a connection of everything going into a digital space. So I personally asked AI what it would what it thinks the digital twin, and that was the image that it gave me of what a digital twin and its capabilities could show. So first, we're going to start with our digital twin over here. Let me zoom in. Digital twin and exploring the concept. So on this little tree, we're going to start with the real world and how it's connected to the digital twin. And now I'm going to explain what digital twin is in the most literal definition sense. Digital twin, depends on your ask, has many different definitions. They're mostly connected to simulations, but they're not exactly simulations. They're kind of like siblings in a way because they are related, but they're completely different in a sense. So let's go with the what. And we're going to go with the definition. So I have four definitions for you guys to think about. One is a digital representation of a physical object, process, or service. A virtual representation or models of entities of the real world. A simulation that can be explained or predicted how a product or process can or will perform, and also a way to support or test human decision making. To take all that information and put into one digital twin is taking a object, adding sensors to it, put it into your program, and manipulating to that object to whatever you want it to do in regards to something you want to do in the real world that you can't do. So, for example, let's say if you're an engineer and you wanted to build a bridge that would stand the test of time. All right, cool. So you take a bridge that's already existing in the real world, you add some sensors to it, and you upload it into this digital space. And that is your digital twin where you can throw weather patterns at it. You can throw earthquakes, anything you want to throw at it. You can test and see if it can has the structural integrity to last those simulations. And when I say simulations, that's where it kind of comes into play of simulations and digital twin. Yes, it kind of in a way is a simulation, but it's not because you're taking an object from the real world and putting it into a digital space where you can create decisions on how you want to test it. Simulations is more the lines of you take yourself, an actual copy of yourself, and you throw it into a virtual space where you have control of yourself in that virtual space. You don't necessarily have control of the object in your digital twin. You have ideas of what you want to do to your digital twin instead of actually controlling the digital twin in that space. If we go to implications, we have smart cities, government laws, and medical practices. We're not there as a society for smart cities. I know, as if you can explain a little bit more on smart cities.
Yeah, yeah. I think it goes back to the capabilities of decision making, right? So when we were talking about smart cities,
Yeah,
a small amount of decisions, how you can make small decisions and big decisions all into a single system, right? And have
correct.
everybody have the ability to tap into that uh, view and say, the decision, the way it's being made is the right one, right? Current day cities, if they were to make decisions, not necessarily everybody in the city has a view of what decisions being made. Let's say from catastrophe that's happening right then and there in real time, or some project that is being worked on in a city level, right? So information, the dissemination of information through digital system like this, it's very, very decision making, like decision support system based. And the smart cities, when we say smart cities, lots of sensors all around the city,
Cities.
and those sensors are collecting information and giving information to everybody in that city. So I think I will leave it at that, because that's a kind of like a high level way of describing it.
Yes. As for medical practices for the digital twin space, for example, say if you are you're in a nurse station in an emergency room and you're trying to determine the most efficient way to have the nurse schedule. You can play scenarios with the sensors from that nurse station into the digital twin to figure out what if COVID breaks out again? How are you going to rotate your nurses? And you can play that scenario. And then if it happens in the real world, you are better prepared for a situation because digital twins has given you tools to be prepared for a situation such as that. Something that we could have used when we had our COVID outbreak back in 2020, when there was nurses overworked and overstaffed and also understaffed in that situation. Digital twin could have came in and showed us a better decision making model on how to move around in such a hectic time in our society. We're going to move on to the negatives. We have deep fakes and replicates of companies, products, and services. That's something we kind of already have. Deep fakes is, let's say you're a celebrity and you do an interview and someone takes the image of you and place it into AI and makes you say things or do things that you actually never did, and it looks like you, it sounds like you, but it isn't you. Replicas, yeah, the medical simulation for staffing is very real. Replicas of company products and service, that's something that we already have. Um, Look, there is a dark side to everything we do. There's a dark side to language models. There's a dark side to robotics. There's a dark side to digital twin. I think the key part of that is we have rules and regulations in place to combat the dark sides of digital twin. All right, let's move on to, unless you guys have any questions about the negatives or anything that we discussed so far. All right, let's move on to the positives. The ability, excuse me, I also think field management during natural disasters, digital twin makes the dashboard so much more. Yes, agreed. Agree wholeheartedly. So for when he says field management, I'm thinking of like
Well,
Katrina,
yeah, exactly.
Hurricane Katrina, when the levees broke.
Or or,
If
or military
I know
bases,
that was
as
like 30, yes,
like
uh,
military bases with fuels, right? Like
yes,
they couldn't disperse it on time. I think that was kind of important, that we had a dashboard that will tell you where the fuels are actually, so they can be taken out of there and put it where it's supposed to go.
yeah. I know Hurricane Katrina was, God, it was like 30 plus years ago, but I was living in the South during that time, and when the levees broke, everything flooded, of course. So thinking back in the now, I was like, what if digital twin was created back then, or if we had that technology back then, we could have designed levees to withstand such a powerful hurricane and tested it before we created it. And so we would have been better prepared, would have saved some lives. So that's the impact that digital twin can have is it's a life-saving capability. That kind of covers the positive stability to make changes in service more efficient, the ability to test new ideas without using resources from the real world. I think that is key, which also ties back into the fuel management during natural disasters. Um, we spend so much time and effort and resources in developing new ideas that most of the time don't work out, and it's just wasted resources. So now we have the opportunity to, I guess the most resource we use is the data capabilities, all the data we use, but no actual resources outside of that in the real world can be wasted when you're using a digital twin, and that saves so much time, effort, and I think this is a genius idea. Sorry, let's go down to
I have a comment that I want to make on kind of the real impact of digital twins. Two things that come to mind for me is combat engineering. Like, think if we could have a, um, a digital twin of these landscapes that we're in when we're in combat, and if we could
mhm,
apply different factors to that and come up with the absolute best method possible, the best tactics possible, I
yes,
think digital twin would be extremely valuable there. And then
hmm,
another thing for the medical field is creating digital twin of sick people's bodies and being able to come up with the most safest and most efficient treatment plan for those specific individuals. Digital twin is priceless there.
yes, I agree. Uh, Thank you for that, the military service part, because I also served, and I was when I first heard about this, I was thinking, well, what if digital twin was around when doing the recruitment process, doing the interviewing process, and they were finding a more efficient way to find recruits for better jobs within the military? Because even though I was offered a laundry list of jobs, the only thing that I was interested in was 11 Bravo. And so during my army career, I was like, why are things done this way? Why, like, the management was so weird to me. And I, thinking back now, I was like, if there was some digital twin to show, like, all right, what if we change how we did our PT? How would the soldiers perform better? So let's say if instead of a 2 mile, we did a mile and a half, and we ran that through digital twin, and it showed us the results of what the effects were by limiting the amount of miles soldiers ran in a week. How would that impact them later on? And especially with all the physicalness of the military, how can we preserve our soldiers' body once they leave, or if they decide to stay in the retirement? How can we use digital twin to preserve their body so there's no more knee pain, back pain, psychological trauma, physical trauma, all types of traumas that are associated with being in the military? Digital twin can help us predict, I guess, predict the future of our soldiers and help them be prepared for whether they retire or exit out of the military for the civilian world. And it also helps the VA, so it all ties together.
Mhm.
It's a big loop.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think right now the Army specifically is going through a complete change in their recruiting. They're doing a lot of research right now on how they could be more efficient in recruiting. Imagine if they had a digital twin so that they could test all these new things that they're implementing or considering implementing, to just see what that would look like potentially. I think that would be extremely beneficial and extremely cost saving, because maybe this great idea they test it in the digital twin and they see the impact that it had, and they're like, that's not really what we're looking for here, so then
Yeah,
they can test something else. I
there's
think that
something
would
else.
be very, very beneficial.
Yes. Right, all right. So the Army and I guess all DoD departments don't like to waste time, and they sure do waste money, but you know, they don't like to. I think you hit the nail on the coffin, coach, because that's what I learned is that we wasted a lot of time, we wasted a lot of resources, but there was no one said anything. No, people were afraid to try new ideas because the military is so okay. We've done this way for such a long time. they wasn't as open to new ideas. And I feel like if digital twin they were able to test the new ideas, it would open them to trying new things and making things better possibly. Meals the chow hall impact the soldier's well-being. Listen, the best meal I ever had at chow hall was on deployment. Stateside they're terrible, but deployment you get fed pretty well. Okay, let's move on to what's next. This is where we slightly go into detail about what's next with digital twin and its capabilities and things that are in the real world that are tied to digital twin. And that's when I'm gonna lead to the expert, Mr. Hader. Can you give us a little more detail on what's next with digital twin?
Yeah, I think we're talking about military, and I want to start from the bottom here, right? Expansion across industries. So when we're moving from industry to industry, every industry will have to approach digital twin differently. But with everybody's permission, I figured I'd talk about the industry that we're very familiar with, which is the phone we have in our hand. This phone actually has tons of digital twin capabilities into it, right? So beyond just phone calls and text messages, you have to start thinking about sensors, and some of the sensors that you have in your house, which is like, say, Ring doorbell, Wise cameras, or even your car, right? These are all sensors. So when Desi will talk about sensors, and we're talking about smart cities with sensors, everything is a sensor, and these sensors are able to give you an information, and you're able to hit something on your phone to say, do something else with that information you just gave me, right? That's digital twin 101, literally, right? Sensors gives you information, your system processes it, which is this phone right here, and then you tell this phone what to do, and this phone tells the sensors what to do, and the sensors does it, right? So if you think about digital twin from that basic, we really have majority of the work cut out for us. We just have to kind of imagine a little bit more on how to go about it, right? So just-in-time training, that was one of the things that I researched for the military, but also the fuel management, right? When we're talking about, how to prepare for disasters, but think about fuel management in the perspective that we don't know where all the fuels are when the disaster hit, right? So to have that ability for the cities to have the ability to say, like, this building has this much diesel, they don't need it anymore because of the emergency support that we really need it in this building, so on and so forth. So you have lots of these capabilities that you can do with digital twin, but just-in-time training, just-in-time information, real-time information, however you want to call it, there's a whole lot of capabilities that comes up with just-in-time, right? So you tweak your current capabilities and make that a just-in-time capability. It becomes a whole another facets of digital twin. So calm technology is another one that I really like talking about. We talked about in a closed session where we had a discussion about silent AI, right? It's a silent AI. That means nobody knows it's there. Nobody has to even really work with it. It just does what it does without being in front of us 24 hours a day. So if you can get rid of this phone, how do you get rid of this phone for 5 days a week, where everything you do on your phone is being done for you, around you, as you're living your life without the phone? So calm technology and silent technology is something that I'm looking forward to. But all of this tied into the capabilities, it's edge computing. So regardless of what industry you are in, the reason you don't see this capability highly available is because the edge computings are slowly bleeding into our lives. And the edge computing means whatever the data is that is necessary for the digital twin to work, it's being processed right in front of you, as in locally, right? You don't need a giant data center to process this information out in Ohio, and you live in New York, you live in California, you live in Texas, right? All this information is being processed right in front of you. So I hope that's kind of getting the conversation started for everybody that's listening in. But the key point here is that uh, every industry will use digital twin capability in a different manner.
Mhm.
Uh, but every industry's capability can be translated for each of the industries. It's just a matter of, if one industry developed it, you can take that and kind of copy and paste it and personalize it for your use case. I think that's a superb technology that a lot of industry will catch on to very, very fast. I'm talking about any industry, beverage industry, entertainment industry, any industry can use everybody else's capability and convert it for their personal use.
Thank you for that. I couldn't. I definitely wouldn't have said it better myself. So, with that grand scheme of information, we're going to move on to the how. I want to see. All right. Stop. Okay. So, the how. This is where I'm gonna break down how digital twin works in the least technical aspect. So, for example, let me get this cover. Say this glass here, we have sensors on it. All right. These sensors give out data. It goes to a data cleaning. All right. A data cleaning then goes to analysis. It's also the data cleaning goes to a knowledge model. The analysis go to an up-to-date model of the real world. All right. Then it goes to the planning of what if analysis, which circles back to the effectors of the real world. And once that goes through, sorry, technical difficulty, goes to our decision making. So you have a sensor. I put a sensor on myself. It goes to the sensor, takes the data, cleans the data, goes to a knowledge model, right? Goes back to analysis. The analysis goes to an up-to-date model of our real world. And then where we come into play is the planning and the what if analysis is where we throw things at it and see what we can manipulate it or just test our ideas, our curiosity. All right. And then it goes to our decision making of how or if we're going to implement those results back up to the effector, which is going to be the real world. So that's in the most simplest term how a digital twin does this thing, how it works. You guys have any questions or curious about the steps? I know it's very kind of, I try to not make it as technical as possible, but that is the most simplest form of how a digital twin makes a copy of the real world object.
I think I wanna just emphasize that what Desi just showed is the black box of any system that you're looking at today, and you're thinking, "Wow, that system is very smart." The reason that system is smart is because of what Desi just showed you. If you feed it data through sensors, and the effectors are replying back what the sensors needs to do next, it's literally automation, AI, machine learning, large language model, anything that you want to call a black box, this is black box right here.
Yep.
Just 101 of a black box. And the very easy, simple understanding of it. The difference between industries to industries is that how much this will cost you and how the effectors will be manufactured through hardwares. This black box are highly available for everybody to use. It's just that we have to know these simple steps. And I love this diagram because this is the black box of all the systems that I came across.
ChatGPT in the most simplest form, right there. So if you ever wonder how does ChatGPT work, there it is. So you ask a question, it searches the data, it cleans the data, it goes through the model, it comes back to you, you look at it, you determine if it's something that is true within the real world, and you plan on what you want to do with it, and you make a decision, and boom, you apply that information to the effectors, which is going to be your real world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's when I saw this and I thought really deep into this, I couldn't believe how simple it was. Because when you think of language models, even robotics, AI, like anything that has to do with that within that field space, you're thinking you have to be a genius to create something like that, or it has to be super complex. When in theory, it's literally just data cleaning, going through a process, and coming back to you with that information. And this has opened my eyes to actually understanding how things are talked about within the AI field. And so when someone says IoT, I know that's Internet of Things. I know what that means now, even though it was just a simple Google search or YouTube video. When someone said IoT and I looked up what IoT was, it was very simple. And I kind of want to get rid of the stigma that anything IT or AI related is so complex and you have to have worked in that field or a degree in that matter, when you don't. When it's nowadays is a simple 15-minute YouTube video, you learn so much and you don't need special education to understand what people are talking about within this field, and you could join in on a conversation, especially if yeah, a laptop is an IoT. All things are sensors if it can communicate exactly. So it's um, step out of your fears and just click a YouTube video on anything AI, and I guarantee you you will learn something that's or you will lose your fear of AI or your fear of knowledge on everything that's to do with AI. If you guys have any questions on the how it works, we can go ahead and ask away. If not, we can move forward.
Desi, I have a couple question comments to kind of help with the like painting this picture.
Mhm.
So, one thing that you mentioned to me previously that really made it click in my brain is like video games. So, if anyone's familiar with 2K or Madden, they use real people and they put sensors on their body and they do these moves and then it's in this video game now. And then the player can, have it run, have it, do all these different moves or whatever the case may be, and that's a digital twin. And then that when you shared that with me in that moment, I was like, okay, I get it now. A digital twin, it's not this crazy tech thing that I can't grasp. It's actually really simple, and we're using it in real life. And then another thing, I just want to make sure that this is something that I understand of
Mhm.
a simple use of digital twins. So we have these apps where we can like take pictures of our spaces,
Mhm.
and that's the sensor, right? Our camera. And then we
Yes,
could put like furniture. We could see what this couch would look like. We could see what it would look like if we painted our walls. That would be a digital twin, correct?
correct. That's exactly a digital twin. So yeah, your camera, yes, it's a sensor, and it takes something in your real world and it created a digital space of that, a digital twin of that, where you can see what you envision in your mind in that digital space while actually having to spend money or time or leaving your home to change what's within your own home. So there, you just say, hey, what if I wanted this wall to be from white to pink? How would it look? Or if I wanted this coffee table to be uh, dark wood instead of light wood, you can do that in that digital twin. AR, VR, MR is also a digital twin. Yes. So yes, that is a digital twin. Um, Great example. So we've been using digital twin for a very long time. Digital twin goes back to us landing on the moon and trying to figure out how we can get those astronauts back. So I know there's a movie based on that, and they put simulations into a computer to figure out the best way to get Mr. Armstrong back from the moon, and that's in all purposes digital twin. It took that situation in the real world and put it into a simulation in a digital space, and it figured out how to get him home safely. And that's where digital twin and theoretically was created. Anytime you ever seen like a behind the scenes of a TV show or movie where there's a green screen and the guy's in a tight suit with some buttons or sensors on them, and they took that person and put it into a something in the world that they didn't have access to, digital twin. So digital twin has been around us for a very long time. It was just called different things. And now that it's into organizations, that's when it started to become an actual digital twin, not just AR, VR, or MR. And so yes, Call of Duty, Madden, 2K, MLB, FIFA, they all use the actual person, put sensors on them, and have them maneuver in the way that they want into their game. The only difference is that the game is not real world, even though some of those places are real places that they took from places in the real world. It's not in a space where it's actually something you can find in the real world. Sometimes in video games, sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. But yes, you're right. That is a digital twin in all intents and purposes. What about Google Maps? So that's a great question. I thought about this a couple days ago. Google Maps, it is all world, but you can't necessarily change anything in Google Maps that can change how we look at the world in Google Maps. Google Maps is something you could just use to see our world that you can't see in the real space. I guess technically it's a digital twin, but you can't manipulate it, or you can't test ideas in Google Maps. You can venture out, you can explore it, but you can't do anything within their program. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, you're not pushing a button to make an effect, right?
Yeah, you're not making like what happened if the sea level rose another 5% in the Indian Ocean. Like you can't do anything. You can just see other parts of the world that you don't have access to.
But this goes back to like the problem with AI as well. If you ask one person about AI, they will tell you their view, and if you ask 100 people, they will give you 100 different views about it, right? I think digital twin is no different. But one way to capture digital twin, as far as what Nora's asking about Google Maps, is that if you are enabling yourself to make a decision, is that a digital twin? In my opinion, why not, right?
Yeah.
But if you're pushing a decision through a system and a factor takes over, to me, that seals a deal, right? So sort of that ring camera, right? If you are able to open the door because the ring camera doesn't open the door. I think the door system that you have in your house, if you can open the door, that's sort of a digital twin capability, right? It has to go through all this process to say, so somebody at the door, and your decision is to open the door, right? But now think about it from a broader perspective. Like, say, for example, if you're operating a vehicle that is under the ocean or something like that, right? You're operating a submarine, right? And that submarine is making moves based off your feedback. We have ships that are being operated from the dock, right? A operating crew of 5 can operate 50 ships that are out into the ocean outside of Sweden, right? These ships are operating based on 5 pilots that's sitting on the dock, just telling the ship where to go. Is that a digital twin? Yes, but not a lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, I agree. That's 100% digital twin." Everybody has their own different methodologies. But to go back to your Google Map, the what if analysis is where seals the deal for me when it comes to systems that are not necessarily making decisions on your behalf or effectors, right? Because what if analysis is something that we've been working on for the last 10, 15 years and with many systems, right? So we talked about NVIDIA, Microsoft, SAPs. What if analysis is like bread and butter, the predictive analytics of things, right? If a company that already has what if analysis at work and they're looking to do more with it, this is what digital twin is to me, right? It can do what if analysis, and Google Map allows that. Google Map will tell you, well, if you take this road, you will end up here in this time. If you take this road, you'll end up here. Or Google Map, I think, allows you even to pick like the least gas consuming path, right? What if analysis, right? So Google Map, just like digital twin capabilities that nobody can agree on what digital twin is. Well, look, Google Map uses machine learning. Is Google Map an AI? It absolutely is in my book, right? It uses machine learning.
Yeah, absolutely, is an AI. Yes.
Analysis, right? Is it an AI? Well, let me tell you, I think it is an AI, right? But many people will say, no, that's not an AI because it doesn't do AI stuff. I'm like, what is AI stuff? But everything follows the same process of this black box here, right? Anything that follows this black box and it's working towards that. What if Google Map eventually becomes a system that says, if you have to make a decision, you make a decision, you press a button to Google Map, and Google Map allows you to do that. By the time you get to the destination, that's your decision-making capability through an effector, right? I think it will happen eventually. It's just maybe not there today.
So, Nora, you brought up an excellent point. I know you live in a region that experienced a lot of flooding recently. I think it was the last month or maybe a few months ago. And I was thinking, like, what if digital twin could help? I know your city is very large. At least digital twin could have took a twin of your city in digital space and design a way that, I know you live in a place that doesn't really get much water, but in case that it does have excess of water, it could design a way to at least get that water out of the city in a more safe manner instead of flooding. Because when I saw the images, I was shocked, and I couldn't believe that even that space had such flooding issues. And so I was thinking that when you said that Google Maps, I'm like, oh my gosh, you just experienced a flood. What if digital twin could have stopped that flood from happening? At least created a sewer system within your city to handle a situation just like that. So yeah, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. What's digital twin, its capabilities, and the difference between AI and other language models compared to digital twin. We
Great,
can move. Go ahead.
great point, Desi. And it also reminds me of smart cities that you mentioned,
Mhm.
how to design the city, you know, better to create more effective routes, or even how, flooding would not damage as much.
Right. Yes. Okay, we're gonna move on to. Didn't mean to do that. The why. So this part of our conversations is going to be more of a questionnaire to everyone listening or everyone watching. First question is why do we need digital twin? I have my own personal reasons to why I think we need digital twin. I think it's a game changer within our society. It can save many lives and it could save resources that we desperately need. What do you guys think?
I think that we need it because it could be extremely cost saving. It could save lives. It allows people, individuals, and large groups of people to test variables without having to actually really do it. You can have so much control over the digital twin environment. So I think it's really a great tool for like scientific testing in a sense as well. But the big thing is, maybe the upfront cost might be daunting. I have no idea. I'm not familiar with the cost of something like this. However, I think considering the long term savings is big for me. It could be extremely cost saving to organizations, to the public, to everyone, around the world. So that's my sense of why we need it.
I agree completely.
What would something like this
Anyone
cost?
else?
Yeah, I think first
Whew.
answer that with opportunity cost, right? I think Phoenix kind of hit on that, saying we don't know how much we're losing by not having digital twin capability. But I want to draw a thread between the space and time here,
Mhm.
um, because the cost probably was very exorbitant. I remember working on something on digital twin back in 2019, 2020. The reason I couldn't get it off the ground is because of the cost associated with it. The main cost of all digital twin, all capabilities that you're seeing listed in front of you is the human capital, the manpower and man labor hour, right? Because it costs a lot to have the subject matter expert engage. So if you look at the full life cycle of anything where the subject matter expert will have to come in, engage, that's the most expensive part of digital twin capability. The rest of it falls into the in-house subject matter experts. Like, say, for example, if Phoenix is an employee who's very well understood, very what is that word I'm looking for here? Um, she understands digital twin requirements, right? And she's able to speak on that. That doesn't cost that much. And for you to get started with a proof of concept doesn't cost that much. For you to actually use the hardwares and software that NVIDIA, Microsoft, and Siemens has put together, it doesn't cost that much. So costs associated with the full life cycle of digital twin capability, the subject matter experts on digital twin is the most expensive part of your project. The rest of it could be done in-house, where the requirement gathering, the understanding of opportunity cost and future cost benefit analysis, these are all in-house. You just need somebody who specializes for these in-house requirements. It is the most low hanging fruit, right? The low hanging fruit to say, I'll go to Desi if I wanted to create a digital twin capability. Who else can I collaborate with in my office so that way I don't have to go out to Microsoft and Nvidia to say, can you send somebody that costs $700 an hour to come and set up a digital twin for me, right? $700 an hour, 40 hours a week. You can do the math. So the cost here is very minimal if you were to get started. Where does it get expensive? I think that's the questions that all have to ask. But it shouldn't cost that much, not today in 2024.
Yeah.
NVIDIA is creating all these capabilities. Unreal Engine has it all available for everybody to use. If depending on your ERP system, depending on system that you already have or system that you're trying to develop on top of, how complicated the systems are that you already have paid for and have the system that is collecting the data from, those equations will come up. But as you do cost benefit analysis, I think it will draw that picture for you based on
Yes.
your.
There are organizations already that have digital twin, like he mentioned NVIDIA. There's ANSYS Twin Builder, and a major one is IBM already has digital twin capabilities. And so for organizations to try to get into it and use that. So I would imagine that it is cheaper now than it was back in, I guess, 2019, 2018. So I wouldn't expect it to be as expensive as it was back then. If you even think about ChatGPT, I think, what is it, like $10 a month for their most up to date version? And so um, I think the cost still might be a little greater for personal use, but I'm sure there's capabilities out there where it might be even free just to play around with. But for organizations, I don't really expect it to be such a high of a cost. First is the cost of what you would either save or yes, exactly, save from using digital twin and changing the way you do things within the organization. Which leads me to the next: what fields can it impact? I guess I would give a couple of hints. There is aerospace, there's our healthcare system, there is defense, there is manufacturing. Um, I was thinking about our food on farming. I was thinking, how can digital twin help with farming? And it could take your land, your crop, or whatever crop you like to produce, or farm animals, or whatever field it may be. You make a digital copy of that and put it into our digital twin program, and you throw things at it like, all right, so what if we don't get much rain this year? What can I do to make sure that my crop isn't at a loss? And it, boom, it does it. It shows you what steps you could take to prevent a loss in your crop, depending on whatever Mother Nature throws at you. And so I like to, I guess, lead on to someone else to think about what other fields it can impact outside of the general ideas of where it's already impacting.
I think it could really be impactful in education. Creating a digital twin of the classroom and trying different methodologies of teaching, different teaching styles, setting up the classroom in different ways. How will that impact the learning of students? I mean, it's really endless. I think that a digital twin can be essentially in any field. Think of interior designers. They're already using those digital twin technologies. It's really, I don't think there's a single industry that digital twin could not impact positively.
Yeah, I love that education part, because if you think about just-in-time training, the way we are trained today, which is time-consuming, right? So let's say, for example, a army guy, right, has a tank. You don't think much of a tank, but to operate a tank, it's not that easy to operate a tank, because as an Air Force guy, I take pride in the fact that I had access to a tank, and I was trained on a tank. But when I was trained on a tank, I felt like, why am I being trained on a tank? And how am I going to, really learn about this tank that people go to school for? And here I am being given a tank with a few other people, and we all have to learn how to use a tank very, very quickly. So what if just-in-time training was available for us to look at an iPad and say, well, here's a tank, and here's all the things that you have to do. But driving a tank is not the only part of the equation. How do you maintain a tank? How do you keep that belt that, is touching the surface, and how do you keep that belt linked all the time? And what happens if it falls apart? Do you see where I'm going with this? How difficult it can get if you were to train on something in real quick time. But we don't have the capability of sending people to school anymore for 4 years to learn something very sophisticated. We have to really learn the sophisticated tools and deploy it and use it immediately. So education could be such a broad topic here. But I
Right.
love that example because educational industry can definitely change the game with digital twin.
Anyone else? I was thinking sports. I know we have our video games and such. I was thinking of what if there was, because every year NFL has a draft. And so, what if you took a digital twin of, say, let's say you're, since I'm in Georgia, we call it the Atlanta Falcons. You got two draft picks in one round, and you could decide what player to pick. What if you had a digital twin of that player and you want to see what he would do with certain formations and certain situations in the real time, and you can get an idea of what he would have the capabilities of doing, and you can make a decision. And I think the fields, it's more or less not just creating a copy of that field. It's better. It's how to create better decisions that make things more efficient, less costly, use less resources, and I feel that every impact within our, excuse me, every field within our impact can improve with decision making, and I think that is the foundation of this digital twin, is helping our society make better choices. Because right now choices being made are not being are not very well, and so digital twin can step up and help us as society grow and make better choices within that society. And so that
Yeah.
leads me on to um, how digital twin can help us understand the past and present operations within an organization. That question is kind of, let's take an organization that is almost no longer with us, Toys R Us, for example. Um, that was my childhood favorite place to go to. I don't know about anyone else's. I miss Toys R Us greatly. Uh, if Toys R Us had a digital twin, how could you think that digital twin can help its operations so that it wouldn't have gone away?
Right. Right.
Uh,
And if I may hit on that Toys R Us capability, there's Blockbuster, there's so many other
so many others.
that we can look at. But if you were to simplify with three terminologies here, like you said, past and present, right? Past,
Mhm.
present, and future. But where does the past remain right now is in record management, the archive data, right? If you were to tap into those archive data, that's your gold mine of how to understand what the present will look like. Because
Yeah,
further you can look into the past, more you know about the future, right?
correct.
If you were to look at Toys R Us as a capability, think about here's past and here's the future of Toys R Us. But here we're working with this capability called knowledge management. Because if more people inside of Toys R Us as an employee, as a leadership, as a managers, as the floorman, whoever's working in the Toys R Us stores, if they all had knowledge management that was beyond what we're used to, which is that they all understood the supply chain of Toys R Us, the
Yeah,
cost of supply chain, and understanding and making decisions and helping everybody in all level make decisions. Think about it: past, future, in the middle. You need a knowledge management that we have not had before,
sure.
the capability of everybody to have access to information and make decisions based on this real-time information. Um, that's something that we call BI at this point, business intelligence. But business intelligence is so expensive and so up high that only few people have access to business intelligence. But if you were to drop AI and call it a cognitive intelligence and let everybody have a visualization of an organization, I think we're looking at a world that is far different
Far
than
different.
one that we're used to.
Yeah, I think it would give these organizations an ability to change. I think that's what they lacked, and that's why they're no longer with us. And so I guess that ties into business intelligence, like you stated. And I was thinking about Red Lobster. Like we're losing Red Lobster. Even though I didn't eat there as much because I always felt like the food wasn't as great. What if they had the business intelligence that have digital twin? They could have created a menu that would uh, go with the times of our society, and it has the ability to change, and they might have the opportunity to be with us today. And so I think that's kind of a very important when understanding the past, is that you learn from the past, and you can help better predict your future during present times. And so thank you for that word business intelligence. It was spot on for this. Uh, I think that is all of my tree. Yes, that is all of my tree. If you have any questions or comments, please send them now. That is all I got for you today.
Yeah, before we jump off this call, I just want to say this is what smart AI community is about, right? The specialists that are talking about methods and advocating for SMART, specialist methods, A for advocates, R for research, and T for training. We're doing our research and training. We're advocating for a specialist like yourself as you're listening in to start thinking differently, start behaving differently, have a knowledge management that is beyond our imagination, right? As I'm grinding through my daily weeks, every week I realize that I'm talking to a bunch of people that has lots of knowledge, and in corporation and all of the things, knowledge is something that is highly available, but doing is what's missing, right? Because once you have knowledge, you start doing, and if you do it enough, you become it. And what you become is up to you, but knowledge is something that's always going to change. Doing is always going to change, but becoming is the hard part, the challenge of it, right? So as a smart community, I really want to thank everybody for joining and listening in. As for specialists, and for methods, A for advocacy, R for research, and T for training, keep researching, and keep advocating for things that matters to you as a specialist, right? And always reach out to us and ask us questions based on how you would like to see what you specialize on, how it is that you will be able to advocate for your future workforce and future career. So I will pass it on to everybody else. Please, give your last thought, and then we can close the call.
All right, that's hard to follow up. Thank you for that. I just want to thank everyone for being here, all their questions, and indulging in this conversation. Smart AI and digital twin. It was fun to do this. I would love to do it again. Uh, I would love to do next time a little more technical with digital twin. Just carry this over to the next conversation. Thank you once again for allowing me to have this space to talk about digital twin.
Thank you, Desi, for an amazing presentation. I learned so much.
Yes, Desi, thank you. I always love hearing about digital twin. I always learn something new. And trying to, you really do a good job at simplifying. It seems like this big scary thing, but seeing that it's actually like already happening and we use it already,
Yes.
it's like this makes that so much easier to digest. And I hope that with these kind of conversations, we're just sparking curiosity within the audience. And I think you've really nailed that today. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening in that are now very curious.
Yes. Thank you so much.
There is lots to learn on this, and I think you did a great job with the informational and introduction. It was really welcoming. I really appreciate your presentation today. It was great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Yes.
We'll continue the conversation next week. Desi, really appreciate you working with me on this topic.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Through the process here, and I'm looking forward to version 2, version 3, as we learn more, to go out in front of the public and let them know what it is that we're learning. So
yes, let's go deeper into this.
Until next week, ciao. Have a good week.
Bye.